breaking down, and and it's all cars. And he's one of the most amazing men that I've met. There's been a few others, but definitely at the top of my list here. You really shouldn't be here, Rick. You should have been dead a few times.
You know what? Walking to school, 14-year-old boy, saw a guy 2 blocks from my high school. First day of high school, the coolest car I've ever seen in my life, coolest guy I've ever seen in my life. It was an Austin Healey sports car, a convertible. They're kind of rare British cars back in the day. And a 21-year-old guy with long hair and bell-bottoms and platform shoes and Fu Manchu mustache. I was 14 and I couldn't grow a mustache. And so I looked at this guy and when I got close to him, I said, I always say cool car, but I probably said groovy car. We won't get into that. I said cool car, and he said, you like cars? And so I got to meet this guy as a guy starting high school by handing him tools 10 or 15 minutes at the end of my day and telling him about my day in school. The thing was he was a predator looking for a victim, but he used his car as a hook to get me to go with him for a ride. A few weeks after I met him, he was a heroin addict. He liked to watch virgins get high. How he lived his initial high. Right. So it was a car thing that brought me into that, and so that's why I kind of brought it up. It was a car thing that got me. Full ram air. Yeah. 360 MSD box. It's spec built for racing against Ford Lightnings. Okay. So this was running 1360s on street tires and broke into the 1290s with slick. So it's a toy. You can see the new aluminum tubing there, and then we just did small mufflers up in the frame.
Yeah, it sounds nice.
So this is done to move the Harley around. So I can just go to a little rise in the grass, drop my tailgate, back my truck up, run my Harley into the corner, cinch down into the thing, and close the gate. Nice. I have 3 teenage sons. Well, they're not teenagers anymore, one is. And every day, I can put their names next to each one. AJ and Aiden, Brendan.
You ever see the blow dryer trick with
with the computer?
You can pop them out. We should try it.
Saturns. Yeah. You can pop out Saturns like nothing. Yeah, we should. Well, you know, an overdose from the drugs that they gave me, and then the
very first time?
Yes.
Okay.
And then the shamed-based response to that, and plus I was too high, I didn't know what to do, and then I went out, I stayed on the street and was sexually assaulted my first night in a hostel on the street, and it just went downhill from then. Because of the life, and this is the thing, is when you're out there on the street, it's not just the sexual predators are looking for men, just young men, just as much as they are young women. And you become. Right. It creates you. Right. Over time. And by 1920, I was one of Canada's most dangerous men. And at 21, went to the penitentiary.
Yeah, Canada-wide.
Canada-wide warrant, robbery ×3, weapons ×4, assault, police escape, custody, and possession of narcotics under gangsterism. Okay. So I was a biker. Yeah. And one of the things, because my dad was a car guy. Yeah. And my dad was a hot rod guy, Mattadale, New York, with his best friend Marion, and he built cars his whole life, and so as a middle child, I had an older brother who was perfect. I didn't fit in like that, and I'm just kind of facetious in saying that, but my time with my dad was working on cars. Okay. And that has stayed with me right till now. Okay. To programs I run called Ozzy's Garage. But going into prison, I wasn't in prison long before a guard came to me in Collins Bay, medium security, and he says, I hear you build hot rods and bikes and everything. Yeah. So I look at him. We didn't talk to guards back then, really. Yeah. And I looked at him, and what are you doing talking to me? And he goes, I'd like you to build a car for me. Okay. And I said something appropriate, to that. And he said, I'll give you American cigarettes and coffee if you build a car for me. Yeah. And so I went back and talked to my guys, and they said, no, you can't build something for guards. And then I said, he'll give me American cigarettes and coffee. Well, American cigarettes and coffee. And so I started building cars for guards. And I did that all the way along. Okay. My whole 25 years in prison, I built motorcycles and cars for guards. Okay. And did my mechanics lesson.
Because this was Kingston?
Well, I started in Kingston Penitentiary in the 70s, but then went, I did 35 moves during 25 years, so I got to see Canada.
Right. So in the prisons, they do encourage, like, working.
Originally, they did.
Yeah.
You know, like times have changed, but from the 70s to the 2000s. But originally, they offered apprenticeship programs, and I did my apprenticeship in mechanics in prison. I actually self-actualized in prison.
Okay.
I was looking forward to the next vehicle I'd work on. And by the way, that guy, just to let you know what that guard came up with, was a 1976 Dodge Monaco police car and a 6-cylinder Barracuda.
Okay.
And together, we made one raunchy Barracuda, you know, 440 there. So it was a really nice...
right on.
Yeah, he needed new back tires when I got it and gave it to him. You know, you get in trouble every once in a while for doing things. And I was leaving work one day, and a guard came up to me, and I was building guards' cars and everything, so he felt he was in the right, and he came up to me, and as I'm walking out of the underground, he said to me, and this was Collins Bay, and there's a wall right there. It's about 150 feet in front of you, but it's 40 feet tall.
Yeah.
Substantial wall, right?
Yeah.
And our garage is in the underground, and he came to me and he says, "Oh, Ozzy, here's the warden's car. He wants you to work on his next." It was an S3 Laguna Chevelle, 73, 74. And he says, "Can you go take that and put it in, park it in a spot?" And I says, "Yeah." And I took the keys and I started it, and I smashed the pedal and drove into the wall. Smashed the wall. That's all I heard for a little while. Knocked me out. Anyway, snatched his car. So he should have given me the keys to the warden's car. So that cost me a little bit of time in the solitary.
Yeah.
This thing, so what it is fireball intake, big 2-barrel throttle body, this is fuel injection, right? Common rail fuel injection, and then TTC headers with the inversion plates in between.
Yep.
Anti-reversion plates, so they're about a 1/2 inch thick with a D shape in.
Yep.
Let the air come out fast, Venturi effect, and stop any reversion coming back in from overlap.
Yep.
And it doesn't make much of a difference at regular speed, but at 6,500 RPM, it's probably worth 12 horsepower.
Oh yeah.
So it cleans up your fuel mixture at high RPM.
Yeah.
My nephew built it for me.
Yeah.
And then I purchased it and detuned it.
Okay.
Because it came with slicks.
Yeah.
And so I detuned it, and I've used it for 10 years now.
Wow.
You know, and 8 years now for everything, going to the reserve down here. This is Dodge makes a good motor.
Yeah.
This is the last of the pushrod engines.
Oh yeah.
Right? The 360 LA Magnums. This is an 02.
Yeah.
And actually in this year you could get the 4.7 overhead cam V8, which is the next one.
Yeah. So this is the exact engine and setup that's going in the 57 Studebaker. So the truck body's sitting on it.
Yeah.
And no seats, no doors. And the engine's in there sitting on the frame. And he goes, "Rich, I need you to get this running." So he's got all the computers wiring, everything's laying on the engine. He's like, "Get it running." So
here's
I might need you.
And this is a lot of guys use the S10, S15 platforms because it's a ladder frame.
Yep.
Right, you can just run anything off it, and it's the wheelbase.
Yep.
But the Dodge Dakota is actually a better wheelbase than Chevy.
Okay.
And a stronger frame.
Okay. Well,
So-
he bought the Dakota, pulled the body off, and then just put the Studebaker body on. So, but now I got to get the steering column and the brakes and everything hooked up and figured out in his cab, and then go from there.
With marijuana and stuff, it's a motivational and it's an estrogen.
Right.
So the two things, not too many guys know that. It's an estrogen. It knocked down the violence.
Yeah.
So
you can't take a guy that's just came through the walls and cut him cold turkey and say, "Now you better behave."
Yeah, they get a little mean. Yeah. And so they like it, you know. So I got caught up in that world, and you know, and I did 15 years and got out, and I got released to St. Catharines here, and lasted 6 to 8 weeks.
Yeah.
Shot, hurt bad, you know, terrible addict, right back to jail, and then back in jail, I decided to commit suicide.
Okay.
And then from that, instead of committing suicide, I said to God, "Okay, you have me.
Okay.
Let me die like a man in the yard.
Yeah.
Let me go to heaven on grace." I was biker war was going on. I didn't have to worry about suicide. There's guys who would do that for me if I went to yard, and so I went to yard expecting to die, and then this whole other world opened up for me.
Okay.
Which is what I do now.
Right.
But you know, the thing is what I do now, I became the 17th person in Canadian history to get a university degree in a penitentiary. I have one in psychology. I have professional certification in addiction counseling. But when I come out of jail, I can't earn a living doing that. Nobody's going to hire me.
No, that's
right. And so it is just back to I can build cars. I can build bikes.
Okay.
And I'm right back into that again. And like I said, leading right back to doing the same thing you're doing, but with some young guys.
Right. And we've had the privilege of working with some of the same guys and loving every minute of it. The fact that you can take anything, no matter how bad, no matter how rusted, depleted, unloved, rejected, and with some time, with some energy, with some love, you can bring it back again, right?
So you have a do not pull over by yourself, right? When they run your plates.
No single zero stop. Supervisor needs to be notified.
That's something.
Well, you know, so a quick story. I'm in Toronto and I get pulled over. When the pullover's over, there's 17 police and cruisers, right? I'm being kneeled on, and they're talking. And I've got a black Cadillac Catera that's lowered with back wheels on it and a Paxton supercharger on it. Right? And my license plate is R2R. And it stands for Recognition to Recovery, not Ready to Race or Rick to the Rescue. And as they're kneeling on me, the one guy goes, well, you know, I thought Razor would be so much of a Razor. He's a biker. He's got a Viper and his license plate RZ, right? Like RZ, you know, so R2R and RZR are not the same license plates, and a Viper and a Cadillac Catera are not the same two, but they were black, and so I got to meet all these nice police officers until they figured out I wasn't Razor. And it was actually one cop came up and went, that's Aussie. You kneeling on Aussie for? So I got let go.
Nice.
So that, when I started going into high-risk areas to work, what I do with drug counseling, gang exit and stuff, I would take a muscle car or a Harley and go and build it. And then raffle it afterwards and put the money back into the community and youth programs. But the same young person who will tell me to F off or won't be able to broach a subject, when he's got a wrench in his hand and jump sprains from, you know, hand movement to verbal, all of a sudden he's telling me about his day. And so there's the psychological draw, the coolness of working on something.
For sure.
But there's also that thing that happens with young men when they use their hands. And that's really what I'm trying to do, is build a relationship to the point where they realize I care about them. And then from there now you can...
so now you run Truth for Teens?
Truth for Teens is my organization. When I got out of prison, the only way a guy like me could work with people was scared straight. It was the only way. They could take you out and you'd talk to kids in schools, marginalized youth, scare the crap out of some kid because you're a big tattooed guy with a deep voice and scary, and they'll never do drugs or crime again. Meanwhile, that's totally wrong. When I was that youth sitting there, I just wouldn't want to be that big tattooed guy. I can't be that, but I can be that. And so that's where truth came from. You know, that Truth for Teens. Stand in front of them, tell them the truth. Don't look good anywhere in it. Let them ask questions afterwards. So that they're resilient. They're not me at 14 going, oh, let me go for a ride with you, not knowing that there's an agenda out there that exists.
If you guys want more of these stories, let me know. We can keep going. This is Ozzy is an endless book of laughs and good times and serious times. If you guys want comments, you want stories, you want more, make sure to comment, ask questions, any questions. If you want to get a hold of Rick, if you know a school that Rick would be good to talk to, or youth group, or church, or anything. G or M, whatever. Rick can make it work. Just comment me or look them up on Truth for Teens, but just put whatever questions you have in the comment section and we'll get to them. So thanks a lot, guys. So follow a variety of projects that include conversions and repairs to anything from Ferraris to chainsaws. And check out the Tape Boss, my newest invention that's coming to market. And remember, if you're not filthy, you're not rich.